In this session, I'm going to show you how to hold your hook, how to attach your yarn to your hook, and how to do a very basic chain stitch. So the first thing to remember is there's no right or wrong way to hold your crochet hook. There are two main ways. One is a knife hold, so your hand goes over the top of your hook. The other way is a pen hold, so your hook is on top here. Hold the hook in whichever way feels comfortable to you, and that's the right way to hold it. As long as you're putting your stitches over in the right way, then they will come out looking exactly the same. And the same with your yarn in your left hand or yarn in your right hand if you're left-handed. There's no right or wrong way to hold your yarn. It will feel a bit clumsy to start with, and the tension might need a little bit of practice, but you will soon find that you'll naturally hold it in a way that's comfortable for you. And as long as your tension is okay, then again, that's the right way to hold it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a slip knot. We're going to put a knot onto our hook. So to do a slip knot, we take our short end in our left hand, our long end in our right hand. We take our right hand in front of our left hand and grab it with our left hand to form a circle. And then we drop the long piece of yarn behind that circle. We then take our crochet hook and we're going to grab that long piece of yarn and just pull it all the way through, pop our finger on the top, and then with our short end, just give that a pull, and you'll see that that will form a knot. And then what you'll do is just pull this knot up, so it's almost to your crochet hook, but just so you can see a little bit of light, a little bit of gap between your hook and your knot. So let's do that again. So short end in left hand, long end in right hand in front of left hand and grab it with your left hand to form a circle. Drop that long piece of yarn behind your circle. Take your crochet hook, grab that long piece of yarn from the front and just pull it through, pop that finger on the top, and then with the short end, just give it a pull, and then you'll create your knot. And then just make that knot smaller, almost to the top of your hook, but just so you can see a little bit of light between your hook and your knot. So that's a slip knot. So we've now got that on our hook. So the way that I do the slip knot is almost a technique that I use for doing the magic circle. The magic circle is something that you will do if you start to work in the round. So if you're doing things like toys or characters. So if you do the slip knot in this way, then if you go on to do one of my other courses to work in the round and do some amigurumi characters, then you're almost there for the magic circle. So I'll just show you one more time. Short end in left hand, long end in right hand in front of left hand, grab it with your left hand, form a circle, drop that long piece of yarn behind your circle. Take your crochet hook, just pull that long piece of yarn through to the front, pop your finger on the top, and then with your short end, just give that a pull and you'll form that knot. And then just pull that knot up so it's nice and small, but you've got a little bit of gap underneath your crochet hook. So we're now going to do our chain stitch. So when you work in rows in crochet, so if you're doing a blanket or doing a flat piece of work, you'll always start that piece of work with a chain stitch. So to do the chain stitch, I always pop my finger on the top of this piece of yarn here. It just gives me a bit more control and stops it from twisting round. I take my long piece of yarn, it's at the back of my hook. I bring it over to the front of my hook. So I have my hook facing towards me. My yarn comes over the top to the front. It hooks into that hook. And then with my thumb and my finger, I pull down on this piece of yarn here so I can pull that knot and see that gap. And then I pull my hook so it faces down and I slide it through that gap, bringing that piece of yarn with it. So you end up back with just one piece of yarn on your hook. So chain stitch, so long piece of yarn over the end of your hook, have the hook so it faces towards you, and then pull on this bit here. So have your finger and thumb as close as you can, pull it down so you've got that gap underneath your hook. Turn your hook so it faces down and then slide it through so you pull that one off. So long piece of yarn over and slide that through. And you'll see that underneath your hook you're creating a row of chain stitches. So yarn over, hook it into that hook, turn your hook so it faces down and pull that through. And what you would want is for your chain stitches, for you to be able to see daylight through your chains. If you make them too tight, then we won't be able to put our hook back into them when we come on to do the next stitch. So try and see if you can make them as loose as you can so you can see daylight through the other side. So yarn over, turn your hook so it faces down and pull it through. What you can do if you're struggling to pull it through from your hook is you can pick it up with your fingers, this one here, and drop it over the end. That's absolutely fine and it will give you the same technique, but it will hurt your thumb and finger if you're doing that a lot. So if you can, try to use your crochet hook and pull it through and slide it through that gap that's underneath. If it's too tight, you can loosen your piece of work that's on your hook just by pulling it like that. So if you haven't got a gap there, just pull it slightly and then you can loosen it. So yarn over, keep this finger and thumb as close as you can, so when you pull down, you're pulling down and you can see that gap, and then your hook just slides through and it keeps that piece of yarn on there. So this is your chain stitch, and this is how you will start working all of your patterns that are worked in the row or flat pieces of work. So really basic scarves or blankets, they're all started by doing this chain stitch. And you can see it's called a chain stitch because of the way it looks. And each bump you can see is a stitch. So always remember that you end up with one piece of yarn back on your hook at the end of every stitch, which is very different to knitting where you have lots of bits of yarn on your knitting needles. So always have one bit of yarn back on your hook. If you find your chain is too tight and you can't see anything in between it, then go up a hook size and that will make it looser for you, just while you're practicing and getting your tension right. So just to conclude that chain stitch, you have your hook so it faces towards you, your long piece of yarn comes up and over the top of your hook, it hooks into your hooky part of your hook, then pull on this bit here so you've got that gap underneath your hook, turn your hook so it faces down and slide that piece of yarn through so it stays on your hook. So you're sliding that piece of yarn through, this one is coming off the end. And that's session 1 on how to do the chain stitch.